Stand by to launch FanStream Sports.
3, 2, 1. Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports.
What's up, everybody? I am Milan Jordan. Welcome back to the MMA Daily Blitz, presented by FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you consume your podcast. Also, check out our YouTube page and follow me on Twitter at Milan Jordan. All right, big news in MMA this week, of course, was UFC 285, marking the long-awaited return of one of the GOATs, John Bones Jones, and his long-awaited and long-anticipated heavyweight debut. And, well, he did John Jones things. He beat Ciryl Gane via guillotine choke at just 2 minutes and 4 seconds of the very first round, improving to 27-1 with one no contest. For John Jones, his heavyweight debut, again, first fight since February 8th of 2020. It took all of 124 seconds. The only offense Ciryl Gane mounted, if you even want to call it that, was a low blow in the first few seconds. After that, it was all John Jones. He had Gane against the fence and sunk in a guillotine choke, and that was all she wrote, cementing his place as the GOAT in MMA in a lot of people's eyes. And you know, we didn't know what to expect from John Jones going into this week, right? It was his first fight in 3 years. Would there be any kind of rust? His first fight at heavyweight. At light heavyweight, he dominated that for years and fought like a lot of top fighters and simply dominated them. He has a lot of natural ability. And, he had a reach advantage. He has an 84-inch reach. Huge advantage at light heavyweight. He was quick. He was powerful. He was built. He was chiseled. Now fighting 40 pounds heavier, loses some of the speed, perhaps gains some power. And a lot of jokes going around throughout the week, including by myself, saying that he had kind of a dad bod, but who knows? I mean, you don't have to be chiseled and be a an Adonis-like figure to win in MMA. And but again, John Jones was fighting at 45 pounds heavier than he's used to fighting. So didn't know what to expect, right? And then you watch the UFC countdown shows and like the embedded shows online and things like that, the press conferences and everything. And, he seemed more down to earth, right? He was making a point to hang out with fans. He seemed to be in a better headspace. And we know he's had some issues outside the octagon the last few years. That's been well documented. But, if we're going to criticize him for having those, we should also credit him for not being in trouble for a couple years, right? So, again, just seems to be in a better headspace, and even a little more humbled going into this. And then, getting inside the octagon come fight night, he did John Jones things. And after the fight, he even seemed humble in victory as well, very thankful, and went to make a point to thank a lot of people, his fiance, his family, his coaches, his teammates, a lot of people, the fans. And then he called out Stipe Miocic, who happened to be sitting in the front row at UFC 285. Wow, what are the odds? So Stipe Miocic, the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, taking on one of the all-time UFC greats in John Jones. That will be a fun fight to watch, hopefully later this year. Now, the last man to hold the UFC heavyweight belt before John Jones weighed in on this contest. Francis Ngannou said on his YouTube channel that he wasn't surprised that John Jones won, but was surprised that the fight was so quick that even Ciryl Gane looked surprised because he wasn't even defending, that he wasn't thinking that a submission would come from where he was at, again, standing against the cage. And that was quite a great performance from John Jones. And after Jones's win, literally minutes after the win, Ngannou congratulated the new champ on Twitter, saying, "Great job, Johnny boy," and sincerely, the heavyweight king. In response, in the press conference, post-fight press conference, John Jones called him a big old bleep, some names, and before turning his attention toward a future fight against, again, ex-UFC champ Stipe Miocic. So we're going to see 35-year-old John Jones against 40-year-old Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight crown, probably during International Fight Week in July. This is something that the UFC, they like to have a huge marquee event for International Fight Week, maybe even a couple fights. And look, when you got John Jones, Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight of all time against the greatest light heavyweight of all time now, fighting his second fight in the heavyweight division with a new belt, he doesn't get much bigger than that. And look, going into this fight week and the fight itself, it was an event. It was a true event that we haven't seen for a while in the UFC. I mean, we've had some good matchups, good fights, but it's different. Like when a Conor McGregor fights, when John Jones fights, when Ronda Rousey fought, or GSP, it's Anderson Silva to a point, but like it's not just for the hardcore MMA fans, but even the casual MMA fans tuning in, but people who don't follow MMA, who don't know anything about MMA, they know who John Jones is. They know who Conor McGregor is, right? So John Jones fighting, especially after such a long layoff, such huge hype, such anticipation. It was just a huge buzz just going into and even surrounding the event itself and the card itself, and really lived up to the hype thanks to John Jones doing John Jones things. So, it was just huge. And then, like I mentioned, John Jones, Stipe Miocic, all but a done deal for later this year. Again, probably International Fight Week in July, but we shall see. Now, wouldn't surprise me if this would be the last fight for both guys, because, Stipe, he's 40 years old, hasn't fought for a while. Win or lose, I think this might be it for him. He's a firefighter back in the Cleveland area. Go back to that. He's got 2 kids now, so wouldn't surprise me if he was done win or lose, goes out on top, or finally getting that fight against John Jones. Either way, John Jones, on the other hand, he had this long layoff, wanted to see if he could conquer the heavyweight division. Well, he won the belt. Now he wants to try and defend the belt, and he said after the fight that a champ isn't really a champ until they defend the belt, so he's going to have a chance to do that. Let's say he beats Stipe later this year. Well, who's next in the heavyweight division for either guy, right? That would make a really marquee matchup, right? Or a must-watch fight, a sexy matchup. John Jones against who? Stipe Miocic against who? Ciryl Gane, okay, but maybe, but like doesn't have the same buzz that these two have themselves. And when John Jones was dominating the light heavyweight division, there were a lot of big names up there. You had Alexander Gustafsson, you had Daniel Cormier for a while. You had some guys, and he beat some who's who in the light heavyweight division. He dominated. They weren't slouches. Same with Stipe at the heavyweight division. So after this, the heavyweight division isn't really that deep. So I don't see Ciryl Gane getting another title fight, 3 times in 2-year span. He's lost the first 2. So, again, after this, what would happen? Who knows? Again, it wouldn't surprise me if this is the fight that both guys have wanted for a long time and hoping to have happen. And, it'll finally come to fruition later this year. And after that, we shall see. All right, the co-main event was another championship fight for the women's flyweight title. And Valentina Shevchenko, the baddest woman on the planet in my eyes, well, her reign atop the 125-pound division is over. She was choked out by Alexa Grasso very late in the 4th round. Shevchenko was winning the fight, but she wasn't dominating. She wasn't really controlling, but she was winning. Alexa Grasso was doing enough to kind of not just hang around, but to be, I guess, where Shevchenko, really couldn't take things lightly, say. And Shevchenko from the get-go, she tried a couple of spinning back kicks, some spinning elbows. Well, in the 4th round, she tried a spinning back kick and ended up costing her the belt, because as she missed, did not connect on a spinning back kick, and Alexa Grasso quickly pounced and just wrapped her arms around the neck of Valentina Shevchenko in her face, and eventually choking her out. And Shevchenko, just to her credit, just waited till she absolutely had to, and they had no choice but to tap. And that was it. So 7 flyweight title defenses. That's all for Valentina Shevchenko as she loses to Alexa Grasso, who was number 5 going into this fight. And this is just the 2nd submission victory in Grasso's career, her 5th straight win. Now, she was one of 3 Mexican champions in the UFC, men's flyweight champ Brandon Moreno and interim featherweight champ Yair Rodriguez being the others. And Dana White alluded in the post-fight press conference that maybe having a pay-per-view in Mexico with any combination of these 3 current Mexican champions could be a thing. So that would be really cool if that were to happen. Now, given Shevchenko's long title reign, I'd be absolutely shocked if she doesn't get an immediate rematch, again, barring injury from either of these two. But, new champ, Alexa Grasso, she's all about that. She's fine with doing a rematch against Valentina Shevchenko. And the other case, that will be another fun fight to watch. All right, elsewhere in the UFC 285 card in the welterweight division, Shavkat Rakhmonov defeated Jeff Neal via rear naked choke at 4:17 of round number 3. Shavkat Rakhmonov improves to 17-0, 5-0 in the UFC. All of his wins have been finishes, now 9 submissions, 8 by KO and TKO. And Rakhmonov continues his fast ascent in the 170-pound division. He wants to fight against Colby Covington. Not sure if that's going to happen anytime soon, but Shavkat Rakhmonov is making a name for himself as a guy to look out for in the welterweight division. Elsewhere, he had in a lightweight fight, Mateusz Gamrot defeated Jalen Turner via split decision in the 155-pound division. And kicking off the main card was a middleweight bout as Bo Nickel, up-and-coming prospect, wrestling phenom, 3-time NCAA Division I champ at Penn State, came in with a lot of hype, and well, he lived up to it. He defeated Jamie Pickett by arm triangle in round number 1. All 6 of Bo Nickel's fights, including 2 amateur fights, have been first-round finishes, all in less than 3 minutes. This one over Jamie Pickett is the longest of his brief MMA career, again, taking all of 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Meanwhile, for Jamie Pickett, the veteran fighter, he has now lost 3 straight fights. All right, a couple of notables from the prelim card. Cody Garbrandt, he snapped a 2-fight skid with a solid performance in a unanimous decision victory over Trevin Jones. The former bantamweight champ lost 5 of his last 6 going into this fight, but again, got back on a winning track, looking really good against Trevin Jones. Another guy to look out for, Dricus du Plessis. South African continued his winning ways by beating up Derek Brunson via second-round TKO. When Brunson's corner threw in the towel at the end of the round, du Plessis improves to 5-0 in the UFC with 4 finishes. Again, beat Derek Brunson via second-round TKO, continuing his impressive run. After beating a top 5 opponent, Dricus du Plessis has vaulted into the conversation in the 185-pound title picture. Some other news from UFC 285. Things got a little bit heated backstage between bantamweight champ Aljamain Sterling and his upcoming opponent, Henry Cejudo. Both fighters, of course, attended Saturday night's event at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. They are scheduled to fight for the 135-pound title on May 6th at UFC 288 at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. And in video captured by ESPN, Sterling and Cejudo were shown talking trash and having to be separated by security. The fight's going to be Aljamain Sterling's 3rd title defense. He captured the belt via disqualification against Petr Yan back at UFC 259 and then defeated Petr Yan in a close and contested rematch at UFC 274 last April. And then he went on to finish TJ Dillashaw in Abu Dhabi at UFC 280 this past October. Meanwhile, Henry Cejudo, we talk about John Jones, coming back from a long layoff. Well, Henry Cejudo is going to make his first appearance when he fights this May. If and when he fights this May, it will be his first appearance since coming out of retirement in hopes of regaining the championship he vacated after his stoppage win over Dominic Cruz back in April 2020. This was the first pay-per-view, you remember, during the pandemic in Jacksonville, UFC 249. So it will be over 3 years again for Cejudo, like John Jones, coming out in this fight. Cejudo, of course, is an Olympic gold medalist wrestler, former 2-division UFC champ. He's going to enter this fight on a 6-fight win streak, but again, his first fight in over 3 years. His last loss in the octagon was against Joseph Benavidez in a flyweight bout at the Tough 24 finale back in December of 2016. But Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo really building up that fight coming up for UFC 288. Looking at some other fights from that UFC 288 card in May, former lightweight champ Charles Oliveira, he'll be in action taking on Beneil Dariush. That should be a fun fight. Bryce Mitchell will look to bounce back from his pro loss as he'll take on surging featherweight Jonathan Pierce. And then Charles Jourdain will take on Kron Gracie. Gracie will be making his first appearance inside the octagon since suffering his first MMA loss back in October 2019 to Cub Swanson. All right, looking a little bit sooner on the MMA calendar this weekend, we got Bellator 292 in San Jose, California. Friday night on Showtime with the start of the lightweight Grand Prix. The main event, one half of the one side of the bracket for the lightweight Grand Prix, is for the lightweight championship when Usman Nurmagomedov puts the belt and his perfect 16-0 professional record on the line against former WEC and UFC lightweight champ Benson Henderson. Great matchup, great first-round matchup in this Grand Prix. Other fights on the card will be on the other side of the bracket, Tofik Musayev taking on Alexander Shabili in the lightweight Grand Prix. We got a heavyweight matchup between Valentin Moldavsky and Leighton Vassell. And then Michael Venom Page, MVP, will put his 20-2 record on the line as he'll take on Goti Yamauchi in a welterweight bout to kick off the Bellator 292 card. The UFC, they're back in Vegas this weekend with the Fight Night card on Saturday on ESPN+. This time we'll be at the Theater at Virgin Hotels. It's a pretty decent card with a real good main event featuring a couple of top 5 fighters. Former 135-pound champ and current number 2 bantamweight contender Petr Yan will face Merab Dvalishvili, who's the number 3 ranked bantamweight in the UFC. What has the makings of a great fight. The winner of this fight could very likely get a title shot next. Co-main event, it's a heavyweight clash between Alexander Volkov and Alexander Romanov. And then we got a 215-pound catchweight fight, Nikita Krylov against Ryan Spann. Both fighters are ranked in the top 10 in their respective divisions. Krylov fights at heavyweight. 27 of his 29 wins have been finishes, including 22 first-round finishes, while Ryan Spann fights in the light heavyweight division. 18 of his 21 wins have been finishes, including 15 in the first round. Should be an explosive fight come Saturday night. Elsewhere in the featherweight division, we got Ricardo Ramos taking on Austin Lingo. The bantamweight division, Said Nurmagomedov takes on Jonathan Martinez. And then kicking things off in the light heavyweight division, Vitor Petrino taking on Anton Turkali. It's a solid fight night card for the UFC. In between pay-per-views, we had UFC 285 last weekend in Las Vegas. We got UFC 286 in London on March 18th, headlined by Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 3 for the welterweight championship immediate rematch. I'll look ahead to that next week on the MMA Daily Blitz, as always, brought to you by FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. Again, please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Milan Jordan. As always, thank you, and I appreciate you checking out the MMA Daily Blitz. I will talk to you later.